एक दीर्घकालिक मदद की जरूरत होती है। दोनों पे सरकार को काम करने की जरूरत है। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on the Disaster Management Bill 2024. Sir, this bill aims to modernize India's disaster management plans, which has been in place since the enactment of Disaster Management Act 2005. This bill addresses the evolving challenges posed by disasters, particularly in light of climate change and urbanization. 2024 amendment is response to lessons learned from the past disasters and aims to integrate disaster management plans more effectively into national and state level development plans. Taking the clue from 15th Finance Commission, feedback from various stakeholders, and also including the state government's feedback, this amendment has come in a right manner. The important features that are taken into account are based on the data that is available, the information that is fed in, the planning authorities, the urban focus, regular risk assessment and response forces. They have all been taken into consideration while enacting and amending this bill. There are certain critical issues that need to be addressed in the interest of our country's disaster management. As I told you, sir, certainly keeping the climate change into consideration and also urbanization into consideration, I see a huge disasters awaiting. We must be prepared as a country to address these disasters. As a country, when I look at, North has its own problems, South, East, West, and the central regions. So we need to have disaster management plans region-wise, state-wise, and also location-wise. We must have a detailed plans on that. Also looking at the core civil infrastructure, which has, more, again, urban mobility. We need to have a clear action plans. Again, individual departments have to have their own plans. NHA, their own, railways, their own, airports, their own. We have to go in depth. Every government department on the urban areas need to plan out. Again, on the environmental infrastructure. Again, sir, our waters, very precious. All the 5 elements. We certainly need to have an effective disaster management plan around all our environmental infrastructure. The social infrastructure, which are very, very essential during disaster times. So that need to be very effectively, again, one by one, how it is on the fire time, how it is on the flood time. Especially in the urban areas, we are building 50 stories, 100 stories buildings. Certainly awaiting major disasters, we need to really have a detailed plan on each one of those things, and more importantly on the digital infrastructure. The digital infrastructure during disasters is going to impact, and that is one connect which we really need to look at. And again, on our other 4 important areas, that is agriculture, focused disaster management plan, industrial focused disaster management plan, infrastructure focused disaster management plans, and service focused disaster management plans need to be brought in. A very clear focus on during the disaster how the manpower has to address, how the materials that need to be brought in need to be planned out, how the entire machinery need to be worked out, how that they have to be ready with the disaster plans, and also the money that we need to pump in very clearly need to be rolled out and put it up in the plan, and also not alone plan, and the money should be made available, and it should be made an important point. And also the roles between the central government, state government, and the local bodies. We really need to detail it out and put it in proper roles, responsibilities, the reporting, the KRAs of every department and their calendars need to be properly kept in place. And the rules and guidelines around the disaster management. What is that, the rule that we need to bring in, and these are must, and the guidelines for every department need to be in place. Sir, if you look at in Andhra Pradesh, average, one of the, issue that, I have seen, during the disasters, Andhra, is prone to cyclones. Almost annually we have one cyclone, moderate to severe cyclones occurring in every 2 to 3 years. In 2019 alone, the cyclones caused more than 1.53% of the state's production value. And Andhra's coastline is very vast. The state accounts for more than 70% of India's shrimp production and marine production. And also, sir, a lot of agricultural land, it's completely agriculture based. And we have more than, huge amount of lands, primary agricultural lands are really facing major problems due to salinity and also during the floods, how the impact is happening. So with all these things, I personally feel for Andhra Pradesh, a coastal resilience program that need to be brought in, and part of this bill, as I told you, every state and every location and every region must come out with their own focus, and that way, we will be ready to face these problems. And also the second point is economic losses and around vulnerable communities. See, this is during crisis, the disasters, the most important community that is going to be affected are the poor. So around those people, and also the agriculture and other aquaculture and other poor people who are dependent on that, certainly we need to make a specific plan around that. Especially in Andhra Pradesh, when I see, sir, there were more than 2 lakh hectares of agricultural crops. There are 2,57,000 of farmers which were getting impacted, in the 2024 floods, where almost 19 districts, were impacted. And more than 19,000 hectares of horticultural land, 30,000 farmers, and more than 250 fishing communities, 3,000 kilometers of roads, and a lot of electrical substations, transmission lines, and even early warning systems are also failed during that time. So a lot of negative impacts that have come up, and unfortunate situation is there was no proper functional communication, and available infrastructure was not available at the district levels. Sir, to ensure that we also have to put up that, the right kind of shelters are provided, strengthening the, during those sort of periods, we have learned that the shelters were properly not in place, the finances are not in place, timely utilization of the funds, and also the utilization certificates to be brought in were not in place. Sir, like that, several issues are there. Sir, there are a lot of procedural barriers that are there which need to be addressed. There are also absence of disaster risk evaluation in projects that are approvals are pending. Then, sir, one important thing, this bill fails to mandate the disaster risk assessment as part of approval process for new infrastructure. This oversight could lead to preventable disasters. For an example, Amaravati in Andhra Pradesh, the new capital city, which is sitting on a river bank. I am coming from that place, sir. I know the importance. It's one of the most fertile area that need to be really supported, with the right kind of disaster management plans. Otherwise, we will be paying very heavily down the line. Sir, then last and final, sir, the disaster relief and compensation are not recognized as enforceable legal rights under this bill.
Reddy साहब कृपया समाप्त करें.
Concluding, sir. We have to ensure that establishing a disaster relief and compensation plan along with a standardized compensation framework should be there. Sir, with this we are supporting.
Shri Manas Ranjan Mangraj.